We're gonna rise up with the sun in the morning. We're gonna start each brand new day with a prayer. Because without the love and kindness of our Lord and our Savior, we sons of liberty can't get anywhere. We're gonna do the work our Lord puts before us. There's a job that surely needs to get done. The job of waking up the nation to the New World Order, which is trying to put us under their thumb. We ain't gonna wait around any longer. We ain't gonna hesitate anymore. Now that we've opened up our eyes and analyzed the situation, we realize that we're in a war. And it's a struggle for the life of our nation, for the survival of our sovereignty. And it's a battle for the heart, mind, and soul of the people, for our freedom and our liberty. And so we ain't gonna fight for the New World Order. We ain't gonna train to be no UN soldier. And we ain't gonna give the enemy no more aid nor quarter. 'Cause we ain't gonna fight for the New World Order. No, 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 no way. No way. Jose. Now they can't make us. They can't break us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Captain Contrary Show. This is, I believe, episode 5. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Now, I know when I started this podcast, I generally speaking didn't want to be speaking about current events, but the craziness that's going on over the last 10 days is just, well, you have nothing else. You really have to address this, and everyone has addressed it. So, as we know, on the 13th of July, J13, as it's being called now, there was an attempted assassination on former President Trump's life, and you know, I don't need to tell any, revisit that particular piece of it. That's a news story that even 10 days later is still unfolding. We have the U.S. Secret Service director, Ms. Cheadle. She has, as of the recording of this podcast, she has resigned. So I when I think about Ms. Cheadle, in her epic failure and what just a terrible job she's done, excuse me, at protecting Trump, I think we all can agree that the story that's been given to us, or being fed to us, or the narrative at least that's trying to be fed to us, is not even remotely close to what the real story is. I think I genuinely now worry about her life. So Ms. Cheadle, obviously, she is no longer the director. She cannot do the bidding of those who asked, I guess, or made the situation happen so that the lone gunman could make an attempt on former President Trump's life, and she's no longer useful to them. So she's a liability, not an asset, and so it's it's almost a foregone conclusion that this poor woman is going to be dead within a year. Because, well, dead men tell no tales, I think was what Thomas Jefferson said. Or no, Jefferson, I think, said that the only way to keep a secret between two men is to have one of them dead. And that truth, that universal truth, is still, will always, that'll always be a truism. So I think that the powers that be, don't want her talking. And of course, I think that if there's an honest investigation and an honest investigator out there, or even an honest reporter that can get to her and say, hey, we'll make a deal, or do you want to unload on me what the truth of the matter is? That's a real liability, and so they're not going to want that around. And I'm not big on conspiracy theories, but this is an absolute conspiracy of the largest kind, and my suspicion is that, of course, it's the usual suspects, the CIA, the now Homeland Security, and the NSA, and of course the FBI. Most likely is the one that has been doing all the groundwork for the CIA to have this taken, to have this happen. Now, I've been an avid RFK supporter, and I really think Robert Kennedy, while I don't agree with everything that he proposes, especially some of his heavily socialist stuff, I really just terribly disagree with him. I think he is a good person, and a very, very brilliant man, and he can listen, analyze things, look at those things from a historical perspective, and he can change his mind on things, and say, all right, no, this is a better way of looking at it, and he's done that. He's done it consistently since before COVID, but even more so post-COVID, or during COVID and post-COVID, and so I have a lot of hopes for him. I think RFK is the person that could change the country, just by at least uniting the country. I don't think he would be a bad president. But be that as it may, I have withdrawn my support for Robert Kennedy, and I am fully supporting Donald Trump. And I have a lot that I disagree with Trump as well, and my issues that have been with Donald Trump are not Donald Trump as a person, because like Robert Kennedy, I actually think Donald Trump is a good person, as a decent human being. There was a video that was circulating not too long ago. And I'll get to the video in just a second, but one of the ways you can tell the way, how good of a person you're talking to or you're dealing with is how they treat old people, children, and the handicapped. You can tell the integrity of a person just by the way they speak to those three people, or those three groups of people, easily. It tells you all you really need to know, as far as, do I want to continue to deal with this person or not? Because people who treat those three of the most vulnerable groups out there, if they treat those people poorly, they're going to treat you poorly. And so this video was circulating not too long ago. I found other videos of Donald Trump, but this video I was spectacular because it was unscripted. It was from a camera angle of a cell phone that somebody was recording, and I believe they may have been Special Olympics children that were coming to meet Donald Trump, and there was a staff photographer there taking pictures, and as he stopped to take the pictures, or stopped taking the pictures, the young man who was dressed in, I believe, a tuxedo, and who was, I think, probably had Down syndrome, he just was hugging on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump had the biggest smile. You know that dumb smile that he has, and then you got to admit, even if you like Donald Trump, he does have a dumb smile. But he had that dumb smile on, and it was as big as a Cheshire cat. And he's looking down at this kid, and he didn't push him away. It was like, you can hug me as long as you want to hug me, and I'll stand here, the President of the United States, and I'll stand here as long as you need to, and you can just hug me. And as far as I can tell, there was no other cameras around, and it was just the boy, Donald Trump, the cameraman from the flash photographer, and maybe the parents or something like that. No reason for him to really just behave the way that he did. And then in the course of trying to find this particular video, because I really, really, really wanted to post it in the notes comments, which I still haven't been able to find it, I did find other videos where it was roughly the same situation. Donald Trump was approached by a young boy, and the boy asked him the first time, and I guess he didn't hear him, and he turned around, and the boy says, "Hey, well, President Trump, can I get a hug?" And he was a baseball kid, or softball kid, and he's like, "Absolutely," and he just gives him this big long hug, and it starts talking to him. And the way somebody treats children, again, or handicap, it just tells you what you need to know about a person. It cuts through all the bullcrap, and so when I disagree with Donald Trump, I don't think he is the right person to run the country, because of fundamental things, not because he's a bad person. And like I can say about other people that want to run this country, I honestly think that Donald Trump is a good person in his heart, and he just wants to do the right thing for America. And he's roughly about the age of my father, and and much like my father, he wants to. He remembers the way America was when he grew up, in the 50s and the 60s, in the 70s and 80s, and where there was a strong manufacturing base, and just it seemed like the heyday for America, and there was a lot of prosperity, and a lot of innovation going on, and there's this desire for not only Donald Trump, but a lot of other people that are in that age group, for lack of a better term, that the baby boomers, who grew up in that, and they really, I think it saddens them, and rightfully so, for this to happen to our country, and they want to right the ship and make things happen again, and I think that's really what drives Donald Trump, is yes, I want to bring back that type of America. Unfortunately, I just don't think. I think his first term really proved that he didn't have the gumption to do that. I think he tried, at least with his words, but indeed he failed miserably. Indeed, he just didn't. He didn't execute, and I think there's really good reasons for that. And I don't think he's actually. I kind of know he really hasn't learned that from his pick of J.D. Vance for vice president. So for one thing, he falls prey to flattery a lot. I think that's how Fauci played him so well. It's like, President Trump, you're the greatest, you're the best, and rah rah rah, and Donald Trump ate it up, and you could see that in the press conferences when you watch those press conferences where Donald Trump's in the back and Fauci's speaking, and Fauci's just sitting there praising him in public, and not just, but it was Pompeo and all these other swamp creatures, and Donald Trump just ate that up. Rather than seeing through the bull crap, he just allowed that to affect his decision of who he's going to surround himself with. And I mean, if you really, really want to be honest about it, it was Steve Bannon who basically got Donald Trump to the White House, and then Steve Bannon, being the only outsider he gets the axe. I think in the first month, and Bannon was the one person that could have set Donald Trump up to accomplish the things that Donald Trump wanted to accomplish, or that he said he wanted to accomplish on the 2016 campaign trail. But Donald Trump screwed the pooch. He got blindsided by the deep state and blindsided by swamp creatures, and just appointed the swamp creatures, all around him. And I don't have any expectation that he's going to do that differently this time. I know he said he's going to he's promised to at least put a libertarian in a cabinet position. I think that's great. As a libertarian leaning, or a full-on libertarian, I think that would be fantastic. Is he going to follow through with it? Probably not, because again, he suffers from flattery, and he suffers from the deep state's going to get in there and go, you don't want these people in there. What you want our guy over here, because he's going to make you even greater, President Trump. That other person, he's just not going to do it for you. And I think he's just going to be, we're going to push that campaign promise to the side. I know this is a really, 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 really long way to getting to why I support Donald Trump, because there's so much reasons why I'm not going, or why I shouldn't support him. But I think I have to lay the groundwork. So I've got a couple more points about Donald Trump that are negative. So just bear with me a little bit longer. But the other thing is he's a mile wide and an inch deep. Ivy League. He's an Ivy League educated person, and he went to Wharton Business School. And I think he's a brilliant businessman. But that's as far as his education goes, and as far as his knowledge goes. He doesn't know a whole lot about history, and that's proven by many, many, many just statements that he just totally blunders. And I don't think he really cares too much about history. It just, I'm not even sure if he reads books. And, I know he watches the news, and for his type of business, you really don't have to. There's not a whole lot you read, you read Stocks and Security Analysts, which is a great volume, and a couple of key real estate and books, and maybe his Art of the Deal, because he wrote it himself, and that's really all you really need to know in order to be, and it's more about who you know rather than what you know in the business that he's in. And has been. So he doesn't need to be a mile deep, like say RFK, who is a brilliant attorney, and who knows history inside and out, and probably has an extremely high IQ. Much like Nixon did, and Kennedy before him. And even William Jefferson Clinton, who was extremely brilliant as well, and Ronald Reagan, all brilliant presidents. And I think Kennedy would have, so I know Kennedy is as brilliant as we suspect him to be. But Donald Trump is not. Like I said, he's not an intellectual. He knows what inflation is, that it's a CPI number. He doesn't know that it's caused by money printing, and that's apparent because when he was president, he helped print money like it was going out of style. And as a matter of fact, he pretty much, I know I have a friend who works at the GAO who said, he's like, man, with Donald Trump's, he's like, the military has no budget. They can do whatever they want. The sky is the limit. He's like, we're writing contracts for software that I'm not even sure they're ever going to use, but they're hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing. He's like, yeah, there's just no, like, they can have whatever they want under Donald Trump. So he spent money, or at least approved of that, and didn't do anything to stop it, and in fact seems to have really encouraged it, according to my friend in the GAO. Which makes all of this even more curious. But I think because he's a mile wide and an inch deep, as in business, he mostly intuits his way around things. He intuits his way through problems, and that can work in business, or if you're a specialist and you just, if you're really good at electronics, or you're a really great mechanic, or a really great businessman or entrepreneur. You can intuit your way because you've got experience. But in politics, especially at the DC level, at presidential, statecraft level, it takes a bit more than just intuiting your way through it. You really do need to know a lot of history, and you need to know what's going on and who to trust and who not to trust. And he just, I think he's too good of a person, too kind of a person to be the type that you need to be in order to be the alpha dog that is the president of the United States. And I know he puts up a good front, and again, his actions with North Korea and trying to get unite North Korea and South Korea. What a fantastic thing. I mean, I don't think, and truth be told, I don't think anybody else ever would have done that. And I don't even think Kennedy would have done that. So, he's definitely he tries to be a uniter and in that way. But when he puts up that tough guy, that locker room, hey, I'm gonna wipe the floor with you, and I carry a bigger stick, and that kind of stuff. I think it's mostly an act, and he's just trying to do it at the nation state level, and it doesn't care. It's just not the appropriate place for it. I think, yes, you have to be tough, and you have to have resolve, and you don't give in. And you say, yes, I'm going to defend myself, but you don't put up this tough guy like, oh, we're going to whack you. He's not, you're not Tony Soprano, But all of that being said, I am going to support Donald Trump because, for whatever reason, even though the case that I've laid out is pretty clear, if you look at it objectively, that he's probably the savior of the deep state. In all honesty, for some reason, somebody or some group of people do not like him. They don't like him enough, or they are afraid of him enough that they want him dead. And I don't care if it was Joe Biden and the shoe was on the other foot, I would say the same thing. I would be like, okay, I want to know why somebody wants to kill the president of the United States or the former president of the United States. I want to know who it is, and I think the only way to do that is to get him over the finish line. And like I said, if this was Joe Biden and somebody was coming after him, and they felt that he was a threat, I'd pause and I'd have to suspend my ego and all of everything that I think about that particular person, and we have to put it in question. What is it? There's a part of me that says, it's got to be somebody in the deep state that thinks, oh, Donald Trump is a threat to the military-industrial complex. I don't think that plays out logically in my mind. Like I said, he's the best friend of the military's ever had, and he's he's basically in his last term proven that he'll spend and give them whatever they want, as far as money and funding, and now he didn't go off and start wars, sure. But you don't need to start wars in order to make a crap load of money. If you're a defense contractor and you have the government willing to just hand it over to you. So I want to know what it is about him, and I think that him going forward and getting across the finish line and becoming president again is going to force their hand. If they've already been so bold as to set up the Secret Service and get them on board and the FBI, and to make it so that this poor, confused, very, very confused, mentally deranged kid, and get him to talked into trying to kill Donald Trump, and then take the fall for it, as if I think that whoever orchestrated this really thought that they could control the narrative. And I think this is the hubris and why Donald Trump going across the finish line is going to expose this, is because they honestly thought in an age where everyone who has that at that rally, or the majority of everyone at that rally, has a 4K ultra high def camera, video camera in their pocket, and is recording all from every conceivable angle, and whoever it is that set this up, they don't own that stuff. They don't that's not in their control. So from an operational security perspective, or the OPSEC perspective, if you're going to control the narrative and pull a coup d'etat like they did with Kennedy and the Kennedy assassination, you need to own all that stuff. It's not like, well, the only film we have is the Zapruder film. Those days are long since gone, and that's the mistake that they've made. I don't even think it's a mistake. I think it's just hubris. They really thought, we're just going to feed the public a bunch of bullcrap, and that's just the way it's going to be, and they'll believe anything we want because, well, we control the media as well. Well, more and more people are not getting their news from mainstream media. They're getting it from Twitter, and they're getting it from YouTube, when you can tweet and send video in seconds around the world, the old guard, as much as we may fear the deep state, and we may fear the surveillance state, it's still, we're still equals in this, because we have a lot of power, and we are able to expose them and expose their fraud almost immediately, and we can just obsess and analyze. And as new photo comes out, and then of course then there's FOIA requests for, I don't need the Secret Service video. If we can FOIA all the police video from the cities and the townships, that's going to tell a really telling story. Being able to see all of their video footage. All right. So the Secret Service goes and deletes their audio and their video, and we can't get that, but we can get a whole lot in between. Just by stitching together all the FOIA stuff from the police departments, which, to be honest, I have a feeling they're usually tight-lipped about that stuff, and they usually put people through the ringer to get that. I think that in this particular instance, they're going to be like, oh yeah, absolutely. Here, take this, take this, take this. You want this too? Because I think quite a few of those that are in law enforcement that were there are just as deeply concerned about the same thing that we're concerned about. So I want to get President Trump across the finish line, and I want to see him get in office, and I'd like to see him, to weed out this mess and to figure it out. And it definitely doesn't start with him building the FBI a brand new building. It really starts with him walking in the office and shutting down the FBI, and then demolishing the building and doing the same thing with Reston, Virginia, and the same thing for Fort Meade, and getting rid of those places. And just making sure that they're demolished, and then they never come back, and then returning all the funds that funded them, their apparatus, because that's really those three portions of the government are really what, let's face it, that's really what destabilizes the world. Get rid of them, and I think we can have peace in the world again, and stability in the world, and we can, then we can start talking about things like ending the Fed, and what's the right policies to have. But I think that there's a good possibility, and I think Candace Owens, I was watching her, and she said there's a new Donald Trump. In the way that he gave his acceptance speech at the RNC, which I finally did get around to watching that. And I tend to agree. I think there was definitely a new tone, and he must have gone through a religious experience. Being that close to having the back of his head blown off completely. That near-death experience is very real. And I'm really hoping that this has changed him. But regardless, even if it's still the old Donald Trump, and hasn't changed him and given him a religious, an awakening, I do think, at a minimum, it's put a fire in his belly to uncover the perpetrators of this. So, with that being said, let's move on to what is now Joe Biden has dropped out, and Kamala Harris is now the presumed frontrunner to take his place. And this is just another weird thing, there's a whole lot of creepy crap that's going on with this whole thing. There's the letter that he penned from what someone else said on Twitter, is that the letterhead wasn't the official White House letterhead, and the signature really isn't Joe Biden's signature. It's a different signature, and the way the letter reads as well. Excuse me. And so the way the letter that is penned, it kind of sounds like Kamala Harris wrote the letter. Kamala is the greatest, and then she's been by my side, and and I throw all my support behind her. I'm not saying she wrote it. I don't know if that's the case, but it sure sounds like if Kamala Harris was going to write a letter, nominating herself to take his place, that would be the letter that she would write. But I'm not. I was up until today. Maybe I think her filling the high school stadium with a bunch of people and trying to bounce off of that vibe was interesting. It definitely was a lot of people in that stadium. And if I could get my sound to work, I wanted to play two clips of one of Donald Trump and then one of Kamala Harris, because I think you're going to get a lot of people on the right that are going to, they're going to rightfully throw Kamala's words right back at her, because she uses all these word salads, that there's just some really crazy stuff that she said. That's, she says a whole lot of nothing, and there's people that are throwing that shade on her, that shade that I think is rightful, because it's just, she's just, again, she's a mile wide and an inch deep. I don't even think she's an inch deep. But Donald Trump, you could turn around and say the same things about Donald Trump. He said some really dumb things, I think one of them was, I think he said, you go to the hospital and you have a broken arm, and you come out and you're a drug addict with this crap. You know, that's such a Donald Trump thing to say. You know, I think he was talking about fentanyl or morphine or something like that. Some type of opioid addiction. It's just such a Donald Trump thing to say. Funny but we're either way, you're getting two people who just. I don't know how in the hell we wind up with these idiots running for president when we have so many good other people. I mean, just you have Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, who's an independent as well. Spike Cowan. I mean, Spike Cowan just was phenomenal as a vice presidential candidate. I can't believe that this is the best that we have to offer. Is idiocracy, basically, for these two people. Now I'm personally. The things that Kamala Harris has done in the past as a California's top cop are despicable, and I don't. I just think that. She's a terrible person, and so I could never support her. Not in a million years. Somebody who literally has exculpatory evidence that could free people out of jail, and she's required under the law to turn over that evidence because it would free them, and she doesn't, and they spend unnecessary time in jail because of it, and then laughs about it. That's the worst part. Oh, you just make a total joke out of it, it's just despicable. This is not who we need running this country, and that's why I think when I posted today, I was like, there was we haven't heard from Joe Biden, from President Biden at all, since he dropped the bomb that he was going to suspend his campaign and support Kamala, which that led us to a lot of suspicion, or a lot of it raised a lot of red flags, like maybe he's incapacitated, maybe we have a 25th Amendment situation or something like that. And I'm just pray for his health and pray for that he finishes his term, and because I don't want this woman, and I know that most of anybody who's listening to this podcast does not want this woman to be the president of the United States, and it has nothing to do with the fact that she is a Hindu. In Indian American. She's not an African American or a black woman, and it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman, because like I said, I loved Tulsi Gabbard, who is also, by the way, of Indian descent, and a woman, who would have just made a freaking awesome president. Again, not 100% agreeing on policies, but Tulsi would have been a very reasonable person and very well read, and also another person who's thoughtful about policies and thinks things through, and that's what you need as president, is somebody who has the ability to think things through and think what happens 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps down the line, and what effect does this have on people and taxpayers and the economy, and who does it put out of work, who does it not. And she had the ability to and still has the ability to reason like that. If you've ever listened to her podcast, and she talks like that, and she reasons like that so well. But yeah, Kamala Harris, sorry, just a terrible person, and pray for President Biden's health. I know a lot of you don't like him, and a lot of you disagree with him, and even think that he's a crook with his Ukrainian dealings. Be that as it may, Joe Biden is still a much better president than Kamala Harris would ever be. and we should be always pray for our president's health. And we should always pray for the wisdom that our leaders have. Exercise wisdom, even though they don't most of the time, but we should at least pray for that, and just trust that it is what it is, and God's hands are on it. So I initially had thought that that if Biden was incapacitated or in a vegetative state where his dementia had taken over, the power brokers did not want Kamala Harris to be the president, and so she wouldn't get the nomination. But after this, the news cycle today, I think that's not the case. I think Joe Biden is actually okay, which is good, and he's still president. And they didn't move to invoke the 25th Amendment to install Kamala. So my reasoning with that is if they suspended the campaign because of his dementia, and they wanted Kamala to be the nominee, then it also makes sense to invoke the 25th Amendment and put her in as president until the end of this term and get Biden out of the way, because that would pave an easier way, a path for her to the White House as actual president, not necessarily vice president. But the way the news cycle has been the last 12 hours or so, I don't know. Maybe that's not shaping up. Maybe the power brokers really do want her, and this comes back to the same things with Trump. She's easily controlled, and I think that's what they're looking for. That's why there was so much maneuvering in the DNC to not allow Bobby Kennedy to run against or to primary against President Biden, and there was, I think they changed like 60 different rules just so that he wouldn't be able to find a way to actually take the nomination, take those delegates, or be voted in as the candidate through the democratic process by the electorate. And so he had to leave the Democrat Party and become an independent. So I think, where was I going with that? I don't know. It's late, and I've been up since about 4:30 this morning. But I forgot that quick. So there was this. Oh yeah. So there was this maneuvering of to get this. To get RFK out of the way, and I think the reasoning behind that is because he is thoughtful, and he would not bend the knee to the people who run the DNC, the power brokers, and he would be genuinely independent, and they couldn't control him, or at a minimum, their control would be highly diminished. I don't think any president would be entirely independent. I think it's really, really difficult right now in the state of DC politics. But I think he would be certainly significantly less controllable and susceptible compared to, say, a Kamala Harris or a Donald Trump, both of which are easily controlled from the deep state and from the donor state and from the administrative state, and just the whole DC Potomac shit show. Pardon my French. So that it is. So Trump 2024. that is my candidate, and I'm going to hopefully get back into some different content. I really genuinely don't like doing current event stuff, or I didn't want to do current event stuff. I may do it in the future, but I think current event stuff is just overdone. But this is historic and unprecedented, and it just has to be commented on, even if it's just my little whole podcast talking into my microphone, and my all 10 of you that are listening to it. Hi, Dad. But yeah, I think that that's the way it is. And so my next podcast, I'm really hoping to do I'll tease this out, a podcast on Christian nationalism. So and I think that's going to be a really interesting one, because Christian nationalism to me is it's a misnomer, or possibly even an oxymoron. And I want to talk about that. I've read a couple of good books, and one of them being, of course, the Bible. And I think that there's a case to be made that Christian nationalism is just not a very good thing, and it's kind of a made-up term. But I'll leave that as it is, and I'll like to get into the weeds of that next time. So thank you very much. I know this has been a long one, but there was a lot to be said. God bless you all. Pray for President Trump. Pray hard for President Biden. Spend a lot of time praying for him. Because he needs it, and then pray for each other. All right. God bless you all, and I will hopefully see you very soon on the flip side. All the best.
And we ain't gonna train to be no UN soldiers, and we ain't gonna give the enemy no more aid nor quarter, 'cause we ain't gonna fight for the New World Order. No way. No way. Jose. Now they can't make us, 'cause they can't break us. Say goodbye and so long to the new boy Kofi Annan. Trade away our system for global communism? We don't think so. We're gonna agitate some radio stations. We're gonna try to get them playing our songs. And if they flat refuse to play patriotic music, then we'll know whose side they're really on. And when we take it to the streets of our cities, we'll force the media to cover our action. And when we vote, we're gonna dominate the coming elections, make the Rockefellers wonder what happened. And we said we ain't gonna fight for the New World Order, and we ain't gonna train to be no UN soldiers, and we ain't gonna give the enemy no more aid nor quarter, 'cause we ain't gonna fight for the New World Order. God bless the Republic. Through faith we cannot fail. Death to the New World Order, and we shall prevail.